Welcome back to Lifelong Learners. Last week I talked about meal times growing up. This week I want to talk about autism and disability rights in our ever-changing world. For more episodes of Lifelong Learners, you can go to Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. Also, you can find Lifelong Learners on YouTube. Like, comment, and sharing my podcast helps me get the facts about autism out there. Make sure you subscribe to my channel at Lifelong Learners Podcast. Now, let's dive into the world of autism and disability rights. Your host, Holly Tetreault. Autism and disability rights have been under attack for over a year now. The Trump administration is talking about bringing back institutions. For almost 3 decades, disability advocates have been fighting to keep people with disabilities in their communities. This administration doesn't like seeing people with disabilities living their life in their communities. Every day, they are rolling back laws that protect people with disabilities from getting the care they need in the community. This administration wants to lock people with disabilities in institutions so they don't have to fund the services for these individuals in their community and their home. The United States is celebrating 27 years since the Olmstead decision affirmed what many disabled people have always known. We belong in our homes and communities, not institutions. People with disabilities deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. I will not go back to a time where people with disabilities had no rights. We were locked away from the world. That isn't a life worth living. We can contribute so much to society despite having a disability. I don't understand why we want to make life miserable for these people. Disability rights are human rights. We fought for decades to keep people out of institutions and at home with family and friends. I stand with everyone who is advocating for stronger protection for people with disabilities. Talking about taking away civil rights from people with disabilities shouldn't be a conversation topic. We should be talking about how to improve their lives, not make them worse. Institutions do more harm to disabled people than providing the care they need in their communities and at home. We need to advocate for people with disabilities to stay in their communities and their homes. Disability rights has been in the news since last year, but this most recent attack on the integration mandate has families and people with disabilities living in fear of whether or not the Trump administration will start institutionalizing people against their will. We need to educate people about why it's important that people with disabilities stay in the community and at home. I can't imagine a life where I can't make my own decisions, being locked away from the world I used to know. Everyone deserves the right to live in the community, have access to medical care, and have a job. Even though the Department of Justice is saying that states don't have to provide community-based services to people with disabilities, this legal opinion isn't law, and states still have to provide services for people with disabilities in the most integrated setting possible. This administration is trying to bring us back to a dark day in history. We need to speak up and advocate for people with disabilities because we do not want history to repeat itself. Locking people with disabilities away in institutions is harmful to their health and well-being. We have been fighting for years to have the same rights as neurotypical people. Now these basic civil rights are at risk because we have an administration that doesn't care about people with disabilities. Bringing back institutions would cost states more money than providing care in the community. Without the Olmstead decision, I wouldn't have been able to go to college, live on my own, and live my life how I want to live it. I'm afraid if this administration strips away these civil rights, then I will have no control over who I see for doctors, what I eat, and when I can go outside. These civil rights have made it easier for me to continue getting my education and pursuing my dreams. This administration can't keep saying what they're saying about people with disabilities because it's hurtful, mean, and disrespectful. Everyone should be treated with respect, and we should be listening to disabled people right now. This is the time where we need to be loud and let this administration know that they're not going to get away with stripping rights away from people with disabilities. Getting the medical care I needed in my community has kept me alive all of these years. This administration is attempting to weaken federal civil rights by attacking the integration mandate. This is why I won't sit back and let a president take away the civil rights that disability advocates have worked so hard for to put into law. If you're not angry or upset about what is happening to people with disabilities, then I would start by educating yourself on the history of people with disabilities. I can't stress this enough. This was a dark time in history, and if you hear people being scared about it, this is why. For decades, people with disabilities are living the life they want to live. Some people have a family, they own their own house, and many other things. Institutions have a bad history of not providing the services needed for people with disabilities. The Trump administration can't just reverse these laws. We need to continue fighting for our right to live in the community. I want to tell people, just because the Trump administration says one thing doesn't mean it's true. They have a track record of lying to people and saying things that aren't true. This is why we need parents, teachers, and anyone who knows or has experience with people with disabilities to speak up about their experiences. I also want to know why it's important for people with disabilities to be close to family and friends in their community, not in institutions. How do community-based living rights help you or someone living with a disability? I want to be able to advocate for these rights and to protect them. No one should have to be scared about losing the right to live at home and getting proper medical care. This administration is trying to scare us, and we need to challenge that fear with facts. That's all for this week's episode of Lifelong Learners. Today I talked about autism and disability rights in our ever-changing world. Next week I want to invite Chatty, my vocal stim, to talk about how I use Chatty to cope with stress. You can find Lifelong Learners on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcast. Also, go to YouTube and look up Lifelong Learners. Like, comment, and sharing my podcast helps me get the facts out there. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel at Lifelong Learners Podcast. I want to thank Alex, GCC, and all of my fans for helping me get the facts out there. See you next week. Holly Tetreault.